So I thought I'd start off today's vlog with some information about what to expect during your IUD insertion. I'm going to show you some of the instruments that we use and kind of tell you what you might expect to feel or experience during the different procedures. So one of the things that I'm sure you will have had is a consult with your care provider about what form of birth control is best for you. And if you've decided on an IUD, they probably told you about what to expect during the procedure, probably what they didn't show you and won't show you when you come in, and with good reason. Are the instruments that we use to make an IUD insertion happen. They can be a little scary to look at, and I don't want you to, think that we're using these torturing devices on you, because we're not. The devices all have a purpose, and I just kind of wanted to go through each one with you so you could kind of see what it means. Especially if you're under 21, you've probably never had a speculum exam. So first, let's go over the speculum. This is speculum. This is a plastic speculum. I'll make it so you can see it a little better. So it's kind of like a duck head shaped device, and it's just this little part here that goes inside the vagina. So if you visualize that my hand like this is the vaginal opening, goes in just like that, up to there. No biggie. We then will press this lever here, and this is going to open up those duck bills. Okay, it probably won't make that awful noise. Usually when I do it, I actually hold this up so you can't hear the clicking, although you might hear something that sounds like this, depending on how your healthcare provider feels about this. A lot of times we will use a metal speculum instead of a plastic one for IUDs because the handles are weighted, so that gives us two hands free to operate the rest of our instruments. So you might see one of these, or you might see a metal one. The metal ones look pretty much the same. They're also sterile, so technically we do want to use a sterile speculum when we're doing a procedure that has anything kind of where it could be a little bit invasive. So this is a speculum. We'll talk more about speculums also when it comes to pap smears. Next, I want to give you a little insight into what is happening in your pelvis and what will happen during your IUD insertion. So this is a cross section of your pelvis. What you can see here is the vaginal canal. Here's your bladder and your pubic bone. This is your rectum, and here's your uterus. So most people's uteruses will point up in this direction like this, but some people, their uterus is actually in a flat line like this, and for some people it tilts back like this towards the rectum. So your mileage may vary. The first thing that your provider is going to do when they're putting in your IUDs, they're going to do what's called a bimanual exam. So a bimanual exam is 2 fingers in the vagina and 1 hand on your belly. So I'm just going to go backwards so you can see here. So if I have 2 fingers in the vagina and they'll go behind the cervix and 1 hand on the belly, I'm going to kind of move your uterus in between my fingers and my hand so I can feel what position it's in. That's key. So once they've done that, they'll put the speculum in, open the ductbill so they can see the cervix, and I'm going to show you, you can kind of see in here, that's your cervix. So as you can see in there is like a little pink ball. I'll move it closer, closer, closer so you can see it. How's that look? So of course this is a plastic model, so there's a seam down the middle, but your cervix looks like a little pink ball with a hole in the middle. That is the entrance to your womb or your uterus, and that's how we get an IUD in. So once we can see that, we're going to clean it off with a little iodine, put some numbing gel on it, and then we have to place a little clamp on the cervix to be able to stabilize your uterus, make it kind of pull it into a straight line so we get the IUD in the correct position. That clamp is called a tenaculum. Tenaculum is kind of an awful sounding name, and we don't usually show you this piece of equipment because it looks a little scary. But the good news is it's not scary at all. So I'm going to open up the package. So now I'm going to show you a tenaculum. This is a tenaculum. Okay, so you see these little stickers at the end. Those are the clamps that are used to hold your cervix. So they go into the cervix, these 2 little points, and they kind of create these little pinpricks. And as it goes in, and we kind of tighten up the handle, it gives us a lot of stability. So it gives us traction. So it will go in, we'll grab the sides of the cervix and kind of pull this way like that with it, and that helps us pull the uterus into that nice straight line so we can get that IUD in. So it looks a little scary, but you actually won't feel this go on probably at all. If you do feel it, you'll feel some cramping, kind of like menstrual cramps. It's not sharp. There's very few nerve endings on the cervix, so you don't get any painful sensation as this goes on. What you might feel is cramping in the uterus because the cervix is actually part of the uterus. So that is your tenaculum. So the next piece is actually the worst part for most people. So it's called the sounding of the uterus. And what that is measuring how deep your uterus is. And that's really important for making sure that we put the IUD in just far enough and not too far. So what this is a little stick, essentially. This is a uterine sound. This is a metal sound. They do come in plastic sounds that are more flexible. We typically actually will use a plastic sound more commonly in the office, but sometimes a metal sound is needed. It's a little bit easier to show you on the video than the plastic sound, so I thought you should see it. What this does is it threads through the cervix. So here, I'll show you kind of on this. So it's going to go through the cervix and goes through and taps the inside of the top of your uterus, and that tells us how far to put that IUD in. When that goes in, you feel a pretty sharp, intense cramp, and that is the worst part of an IUD insertion for the vast majority of people. If you've had a baby before, particularly a vaginal birth, or you've labored and your cervix has dilated, you don't really feel much when this happens. But for everybody else, if you've never had a baby or you had a C-section where you did not dilate at all, a lot of times it's pretty painful. But the good news is it's a really short duration for your pain. It's probably just a couple of seconds, but it can be intense. So, just know that once you start to feel something really intense, it's almost over. Okay, lastly, the IUD goes in. Once the IUD is in, we trim the strings and you're good to go. Well, that's the equipment that we use for an IUD insertion. It's really not that scary. So hopefully this makes you feel a little bit better about what to expect when you go in for your IUD. Remember, once you get to the painful part, you're almost done. The IUD going in takes the whole painful section of it takes maybe 20 to 30 seconds. So you've got this, you can do it. We'll see you on the other side.